Believe me, I'd have to go and lie down in a darkened room if I tried proper party catering. But for children's birthdays or lazy summer gatherings, I've found a way of providing food while still enjoying the party. Any good party has to involve a lot of standing around, gossiping and picking from food, so you do need good picking food. And this is kind of my favourite of all those. I am loath to use the word dip, but in effect this is what it is. It's from Piedmont, it's called bagna cauda, and what it is a sort of velvety gunge, a mixture of melted down anchovies, garlic, olive oil and butter. And it's so wonderful with raw vegetables, mostly I think things like cauliflower, chicory, radish, something sort of peppery. I'm going to use 4 cloves of garlic. I mean, it could be 3, it could be 5, but you know, these things are not crucial. Just minced in. And it is important that the garlic goes into cold oil because you want everything to melt down and you want it to be soft. You're trying to get a sort of an emulsion. And try and get anchovy fillets that have been preserved in olive oil. I usually use about 12. I can't honestly say I'm bothered to count them all, but I reckon that tin must be about 12. I'm going to keep the oil in this tin, however, because there's something about the oil that anchovies have been steeped in. It's so wonderful. I love it particularly sort of drizzled over just plain boiled new potatoes. But I do also have a neurotic inability to throw anything away, and I don't necessarily want to pass that on to you. Okay, so just chop these fairly finely. I mean, be patient about this because it does make it easier for them to kind of meld and melt into the garlicky oil. Okay, so the anchovies are in the garlic and the olive oil, so I'm just going to keep the heat fairly low. Luckily that's a small burner, so I can't be tempted to be impatient and turn it up. And really just heat stirring, letting all the ingredients melt into one another and sort of fuse. Now it is quite strong, you can imagine that the extra virgin olive oil is quite peppery. The anchovy is very salty, and of course garlic, especially grated raw like that, it tends to be pungent. So I'm just going to get a whisk and start adding butter, which has to be very good and unsalted. And this is what balances the flavours of the garlic, anchovies, olive oil, and really adds a sort of tenderness, a creaminess. You want to go fairly slowly because you want to incorporate the butter gradually so it doesn't just get runny, but it gets glossy and slightly thicker. And although it's meant to be for dipping vegetables in, you know, it's quite useful as a sauce. I quite like it just drizzled over a bit of steak or kind of char-grilled lamb. I mean, anchovy and lamb goes very well. And just beautiful smelling. I'm just going to degrease. And now, particular joy of the whole bagna cauda experience. The spirit burner, if I were really lucky, I'd be doing this in a fondue set, but still. The point is you want this to keep warm so it doesn't start splitting, and then people can mill around in the garden, dipping things in, and you can be cool about it. Now it's completely up to you what vegetables you dip in, but I mean chicory particularly, there's something about the bitterness. I love these sorts of tastes. Fabulous. May the dip return. I love halloumi, which is this, a hard, sharp Greek cheese. It's at its best, just sliced and fried in an oilless pan. You don't need any fat, or griddled or grilled. I like this with these chili peppers, just sort of chopped up very fine, left to soak in oil a bit, and then sprinkled over with a bit of lemon juice, because that's kind of great balance of the sharp and the fiery. But if you want something very mild and sweet, just de-seed. I'm going to put some olive oil, really lovely thick green olive oil, in here. Chilies go in there and they kind of sit around sousing a bit. before dressing the halloumi, which I think needs to be turned now. Have a look. That's perfect. That won't take long. Oh, so beautiful. Now, no, I'm not going to do something stupid. One of the difficulties about wearing contact lenses is that if you forget and you've been touching chili, you are in trouble. So, excuse me. And then all I have to do is just sprinkle with this wonderful red chili. Spritz with lemon juice and take it out of the garden. This is something else which is perfect for picking food at parties. Union Square Cafe nuts. These are sort of mixed nuts, Brazils, walnuts, hazelnuts, pecans, almonds, unpeeled almonds very importantly. I've roasted them just to get all their sort of aromatic flavour. And as I said, they're spice nuts, and the spice mixture is really quite simple. It's some dark muscovado sugar, about 2 teaspoons. I just have to tell you that this treatment takes a nut into a completely different dimension. About the same amount of salt. I need something to counter that treacly sweetness. 2 teaspoons, a tablespoonful. Just scrunch it up a bit so that it's not too coarse. And for heat, cayenne pepper, really as much or as little as you want. And then, and this makes just such a difference, some finely chopped fresh rosemary. I mean, about 2 tablespoons worth, were you to measure it, which I don't suggest you do. And you know, I first had these at the Union Square Cafe in New York. It was sort of one of those really hot Manhattan nights, and I went in and had a glass of cold beer, and I was sitting at the bar, and they have these dotted about the bar, and may I say, you have one bit of these, and that's it, you're lost. If you haven't got fresh rosemary, I wouldn't use dried here, I have to say. You could always use a dried herb that would be better at that, like some dried thyme, maybe. Right, that should be fine enough now. You want it fairly fine. Add this to the spices. Now mix this together just so that when the spices coat the nuts, it's sort of equally distributed, not just clumps of sugar in parts and salt in others. Wow, beautiful. Heat on, and about a tablespoonful of butter, I mean not much. Tools. So let the butter melt, just add the spice mixture and turn it around a bit just so that it's all over. And then the nuts, this is cool enough now, so just turn them in this aromatic butter so that they're sort of slicked, lightly covered. You can see the speckles of rosemary as well, how beautiful. These are really wonderful, you know, when you've got friends coming out for supper and you haven't got time to do the first course. I mean, just put these on the table and everyone's happy, and to be honest, they are so fabulous. You could probably dispense with the main course as well. From spice nuts to pudding, everyone ecstatic. Beautiful. I mean, look, with their lovely bronzy gold colours against the silver of these bowls. How unfortunate that I'm spilling them. I just have to pick them up and eat them in a minute. I present to you, beautiful or what? Barbecuing is the great American culinary art, so it's not surprising that the contribution to the literature comes mainly stateside. It's one of my favourite books, License to Grill, which is a rather fabulous book, which I read a lot, mostly in the rain, dreaming of barbecuing, but there you go. It's a recipe here which I like a lot, not that I can cook it, but still. Fancy ash roasted potatoes, which are wonderful because I've eaten them. Really what the deal is here is you get potatoes, you wrap them in tin foil twice and then plunge them straight into the hot coals. This is really barbecuing for people who use grilling as a way of communing with nature, and unfortunately I just commune with a gas cylinder. Another American book that I love, The Barbecue Bible. This is one of my favourite chapters, Bird Meets Grill. If you can see this picture, the sort of whole parade of spatchcock chickens, and that's really the way I like to cook my chicken on the grill. I mean, not that many of them, unfortunately, but come rain or shine, I can be at my grill with a spatchcock chicken or two. Once you've spatchcocked like a chicken or a quail, in other words, you just cut it down one side and open it flat. It takes much less time to cook. Basically what you're doing is cutting either side of the spine. I find scissors easier, but I mean, if you want a knife, I'm too clumsy to be safe with a knife. Right, and then I just want to take that bit of spine out, so this is the other side. It's terrible how curiously satisfying I find this noise and feeling. But then I like a bit of dismemberment in the evening. There we are. And that's, just lean on it. The marinade for the chicken is fairly simple. Lemon juice, peppercorns, garlic, olive oil. Not extra virgin, ordinary. So that's it, ready for tomorrow. I'm going to have to do a bit of barbecuing in the rain. English summer, welcome to it. Anyway, so I spatchcocked this chicken. It'll take about 25 minutes just as well, because the idea of being out here for an hour, even with my umbrella wrangler, isn't much fun. As far as I'm concerned, and frankly as far as my children are concerned, you cannot have a birthday party without a cupcake. And they are incredibly easy to make. It's 125 grams of sugar, caster sugar. More needed. Same, 125 grams of self-raising flour. Again, 125 grams of butter, and it must be very soft, otherwise it's not going to blitz up quickly and cream as it should. And so the 2 eggs, in other words, 125 grams of eggs. And a bit of vanilla. If you want to make these chocolate, it's very easy. Just take out, a spoonful like this of the flour and replace it with the same amount of cocoa. Okay, so a quick blitz. Okay, so what you need is a soft dropping consistency. You need a bit of milk to help you get there. Oh, I don't know, a tablespoon, 2 tablespoons. This is full fat milk here. Only thing that's important though is that it's at room temperature, and really everything should be, because chuck something cold in, it'll make it curdle. Doesn't matter entirely, I mean it's not a disaster, it just won't be as light. Great, and we're ready to go. Now you have to be very, very patient to be doing these little mini ones, and I'm not that person. But the reason I keep them little often for the children is that, to be frank, although children love cupcakes, they tend really just to want to lick off the icing, so there's no point majoring on sponge. Don't overfill, simply because you want to leave room for the icing, and I think they look rather nice if the icing is flattish, rather than if it cooks so much you've got a kind of hump top. I've got the oven preheated to 200, and frankly these little babies will only need about 10 minutes. I would start looking at 7 just in case, and nor will they need very long to cool before you can start icing them and letting the artistic spirit speak within you. Well, there is a lot going on here, you can see, very busy in this area. I'm just going to start dyeing the icing. And I do think for food colouring, and I know that it's not an art that most people want to practice these days, but anyway, I really do advise using these pastes, not the little bottles. One, because the trouble with those bottles is that they tend just to dilute the icing quite a bit if you want to get a good depth of colour, but also the range of colours here is just truly fabulous. Okay, I'm going to go a bit more purple just because I always like just to go that bit too far, I suppose, but still, let's go. Just look how beautiful this is, I'll show you, hang on. In a way it seems a pity to puncture this sort of serene, untroubled lilac-ness, but I have to, because I have here my golden treasure. Gold covered chocolate buttons, kind of gold ball bearings, and here goes. Slightly over the top here, not to say vulgar, but hey, this is the Versace of cupcakes. And you remember I said earlier that, you can make these little cupcakes into chocolate cupcakes and also obviously make them a normal size. Well, I've got those there, and I'm going to make a chocolate ganache to ice them. And all you need to do with that is melt equal amounts of dark chocolate and double cream. And all you do to make this is heat these two ingredients on a very low flame until the chocolate melts into the cream, and then you give it a kind of moderate whisk, and that's it. When hot, it's like a chocolate sauce, and when cold, it's a sort of lightly set, glossy, smooth kind of delight of an icing. I have to say there are a few things better than just ordinary cooked sausages, but I make these things called pigs in blanket for children's parties because my children like them, and because I can't resist the name. And a pig in blanket is a little sausage covered in a cheese scone dough, and the virtue of a cheese scone dough is that it's incredibly easy to make. You just start off with 375 grams of self-raising flour. I mean, the original pig in blanket, I think, is a wartime recipe, and they tended to use potato pastry, I suppose, just because it sort of bulked everyone up. But believe me, I don't need too much bulking. Right? And as I say, it's cheese scone, and I use red Leicester, about 25 grams, because I like the colour. It doesn't matter, use whatever you want. Just grate it in, and look, these wonderful kind of tangerine dream curls. Okay, and so basically this is with the addition of some salt, and I think it must be fairly salty. And then really this is just my bowl full of dry ingredients, and all I'm going to do now is to stir in some liquid ingredients. So for that I've got 250 mils of full fat milk. I need some vegetable oil, about 3 tablespoons. I mean, butter would be the sort of more normal way of doing it, but you would have to melt the butter, and the reason why I use vegetable oil, because it means the children can do this by themselves, because obviously I wouldn't want them, you know, melting butter by themselves. Right, and an egg. Just fork this together and just pour this in here and just fork it through. Go cautiously because flour absorbs liquid differently depending on the weather, depending on the batch of flour, everything. You just have to go by eye. So I do need quite a bit more flour in here. You want this to be kind of sticky and tender and soft, but it has not to be so sticky that it will stick to the work surface when you roll it out. A bit more flour, just for rolling purposes. Now this dough is so easy, you can really either sort of pat it out or roll it out, so I've just done a bit of patting just because I love the feel of it. And now some rolling, a kind of rough rectangle. Doesn't really matter what shape it is, but you want it fairly thin because the self-raising flour will make them puff up, and these are, you remember, pigs in blankets, not pigs in duvets. Okay, that's about right. And then cut this into, I don't know, strips. You can see what size these sausages are, so it's just going to have to contain that. So just put the sausage into this edge and then roll up. And there we are, this is pig in its blanket. So I'm just going to carry on swaddling these babies, and then when I've got full nursery there, I'm going to brush them with some egg, sort of whisked with some salt, just to give a wonderful golden colour and also sort of more savoury oomph. And then bake them in a hot oven, about 220 for, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes. Then just, they'll be lovely, out of the oven, on the table, into mouths.